5:19 local time. Inside the ship's information center, the lights lower on their own as the sonar picture comes into focus. There is no siren, no loud announcement, only a subtle change in the room that everyone understands at once. A single contact appears below the thermal layer. The signal is sharp, almost too sharp. No marine background noise, no commercial traffic, no scattered turbulence. Just one steady acoustic return, moving with purpose, keeping its depth and speed. This is not something drifting by chance. This is something that knows exactly where it is. Above them, the ocean looks peaceful. Blue water, clear horizon. Flight operations are not canceled, only paused. The carrier continues on course, a 100,000-ton presence moving forward, as though nothing has changed. But below the surface, everything has changed. In the information center, the sonar supervisor leans toward the display. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. He gives the bearing, then the estimated depth. Another crew member repeats it back. Every word is recorded. Every second is marked. The contact is using the ocean itself as cover, staying beneath the thermal layer where sound bends and hides. That one detail already narrows the list of possibilities. Passive sonar confirms the signature. Low frequency, controlled, consistent. Not rushing, not disappearing. Simply there. Close enough to matter, distant enough to make a point. A readiness condition is set across the ship. It spreads not like panic, but like muscle memory. Compartments are checked, key stations are manned. Defensive systems remain inactive. No sudden moves, no visible escalation. This is not confusion. This is discipline. Then the contact shifts depth slightly, just enough to be noticed. A small climb, then a return. A probe. The sonar team marks it instantly. That movement is not random. It is a message sent through water. Are you paying attention? The answer is already moving silently across the screens. On the surface, escort ships maintain formation. Destroyers along the outer screen widen their spacing by a small margin, barely noticeable to anyone watching from a distance. To trained eyes, though, it looks like a curtain being pulled into place. The carrier itself does not turn. Inside the information center, analysts compare the contact's blade rate with stored acoustic profiles. The numbers fit too neatly. This is not an old diesel boat that wandered into the area by mistake. This is a modern undersea vessel operating with confidence. Its speed stays steady, no evasive movement, no sudden burst of noise, no break in discipline. That is the part that matters most. A submarine trying to stay unnoticed does not behave this way. This one seems willing to be found. Then comes another depth change, sharper than before. The thermal layer bends the return, but not enough to hide it. The contact remains there, holding the same relative bearing to the carrier's path.
It is not crossing ahead, it is not dropping back, it is shadowing. Closest point of approach is calculated, then calculated again. The numbers continue to tighten. No one needs to say what everyone is thinking. In naval operations, intent is not always announced by radio. Sometimes it is written in movement, distance and angle. And this geometry is becoming uncomfortable. The sonar supervisor requests a brief active sonar window. The request moves up the chain quickly, calm and procedural. Approval comes back almost immediately. One pulse. The sound travels into the deep, cutting through the thermal layer. The return comes back clean and undeniable. Metal answers metal. The contact does not bolt away. It does not drop suddenly. It holds position, then makes a small course correction. Another test, another silent question. Confident in its escape options. Confident enough to test a carrier strike group directly. The bearing is called again. This time the number is smaller, closer. Up on the bridge, the captain stands motionless, his hands resting lightly on the rail. He is not watching the horizon. His eyes are on the repeater displays. When he speaks, his voice is steady, almost measured. Maintain course. Record everything. That is the order. No radio message is sent. No warning is issued. There is no reason to announce what is already understood.
Whoever is beneath the surface knows they have been detected, and whoever they are, they have chosen to remain there.
The contact slips back beneath the thermal layer, lowering its acoustic presence just enough to blur the picture, but not enough to vanish. It is not a retreat, it is a controlled fade. In the information center, the track remains solid. This is not finished, it is only beginning. The contact does not disappear. It settles. Below the thermal layer, the acoustic return becomes stable again, almost intentionally. It is not drifting. It is not hiding behind passing traffic. It is holding a parallel course, matching the carrier's movement with quiet precision. Inside the information center, the picture becomes clearer. The submarine is no longer trying to learn whether it has been detected. It already knows. Now it is studying the response. Timing, spacing, course discipline, and reaction angles. The quiet details that matter when two professional crews meet without speaking. Then the contact increases speed slightly, only for a moment. Controlled, brief. Then it returns to its previous pace. The sonar team catches it immediately. That short burst is not about closing the distance. It is a measurement, a test. How quickly will the group respond? The answer comes without drama. Destroyers along the outer screen shift again, widening the protective pattern by another small step. No sudden turns, no aggressive signals, just silent calculations spread across miles of open water. The carrier remains the center of gravity. Everything else adjusts around it. This is not panic. This is procedure. The submarine's next movement says even more. Instead of crossing behind the carrier, it slides sideways while keeping a steady bearing. The geometry is clear. It is not trying to pass unnoticed. It is placing itself where it can observe, measure, and be noticed. The acoustic signature sharpens as analysts refine the filters. Blade rhythm, shaft tones, machinery pattern, every detail is compared against stored profiles. The match becomes stronger with every second. The contact is identified as a Russian attack submarine. The confirmation is entered into the log, not spoken across the room. On the bridge, nothing changes. The sea does not respond to names or flags. It responds to distance, movement, and physics. And the physics now says the submarine is close enough to matter. The sonar supervisor calls out another depth change. The boat rises slightly, brushing near the upper edge of the thermal layer, before slipping back below it. It is a familiar maneuver, meant to complicate tracking and force fresh calculations. But this time, it does not break the picture. The contact remains firm on the display. Multiple sensors are holding it now, not just one. Towed arrays from the escort screen feed into the shared picture. This is no longer one ship tracking a contact. This is the entire group watching the same underwater shadow. Then the submarine stops maneuvering. Speed steady, depth steady, course steady. That pause feels deliberate, a message without words. We are here. We are staying. Inside the information center, the closest point of approach is updated again. The number tightens further. Still inside the controlled zone, still outside the point that would demand a visible response. But close. Too close to be accidental. On the bridge, the captain watches the numbers continue to fall. He does not order a course change. Turning away would give the moment more weight than it deserves. So the carrier continues forward, steady and unbothered. Then, beneath the surface, the submarine makes its boldest move yet. A short, active sonar pulse. Brief, precise, almost restrained, but unmistakable. It is like a tap on glass from somewhere deep below the sea. The kind of signal no submarine sends unless it wants to be known. For half a second, the information center goes completely still. Not from confusion, but from recognition. That single sound removes every last doubt. This is not a mistake. This is a message. The response is immediate, but controlled. There is no matching pulse, no visible escalation, no emotional reaction.
Instead, the signal is captured in full: frequency, strength, timing, and pattern. Every detail is stored. In modern naval operations, information is power. And for one brief moment, the submarine has given some of it away. Then the contact returns to silence, slipping back into a passive posture. But the meaning of the moment remains. The veil is thinner now. That confidence has given something away. The destroyers adjust again, this time drawing their arcs slightly tighter. Still no visible escalation. No aircraft rushed into the air, no dramatic movement across the deck. But the pattern is no longer just an idea on a screen. It is taking shape. The submarine changes course by a few degrees, easing away from its previous track. The move is careful, almost hesitant. A reassessment. The closest point of approach steadies, and the strike group holds firm. This is the moment when intention becomes clear. The submarine could leave now. It could slip into deeper water, fade from the picture, and allow the encounter to end quietly. It does not. Instead, it continues to shadow the carrier, matching its path and staying close enough to keep the pressure alive. In the information center, one analyst says it quietly, almost to himself. They are not here to engage. They are here to signal. And he is right. This is not about crossing the line, not yet. This is about presence. About showing capability while staying just below the threshold that would force a response no one wants. Above the water, nothing seems different. The horizon is still calm. The sky is still clear. Sailors continue their work with practiced focus. But below the surface, two naval doctrines are pressing against each other in silence, and the space between them is getting smaller. Then the posture changes. There is no ceremony, no raised voices.
In the Combat Information Center, the decision is made quietly and passed across the watch floor in short phrases and quick nods. The submarine has stayed long enough. Observation has become persistence. Persistence requires control. The order moves forward. Launch the helicopter. On the flight deck, the MH-60R Seahawk begins to spin up, its rotors cutting clean circles through the air. There is no panic, no rush. This is not a scramble. It is a deliberate shift from passive tracking to active control of the situation. As the helicopter lifts from the deck, the carrier does not slow. The escorts do not break formation. The ocean remains calm and indifferent. Only the geometry changes. Below the surface, the submarine holds its course, still hidden beneath the thermal layer. It does not race away. It does not dive deep. That choice matters. The Seahawk clears the deck and banks low, heading toward the calculated datum point where multiple sonar lines converge. Inside the aircraft, the crew works in disciplined silence. Sonobuoy racks are ready. Frequencies are selected. Search patterns are already planned. This is not guessing. This is choreography. The first sonobuoys drop into the water, their small parachutes folding as they settle into place. One by one, they begin to listen. The ocean fills with overlapping fields of sound, a net built from mathematics, training, and experience. The submarine reacts. A sharp course change, a shallow dive. An attempt to slip between the gaps before the pattern fully closes. The sonar plots catch it immediately. The maneuver is clean, professional, and too late. More sonobuoys enter the water. The thermal layer is no longer a shield. Now it is a reference point. The submarine's acoustic outline becomes sharper as the space around it fills with sensors. Every turn gives away more. Every adjustment adds detail to the picture. On the destroyers forming the outer screen, towed arrays swing wide and feed more data into the shared display. The strike group's awareness deepens, layer by layer. The observer has become the observed. The submarine makes another calculated move. A brief increase in speed, followed by a sudden return to a slower pace. It is trying to create uncertainty, to force a false track, to see if the pattern will break. It does not.
The Seahawk circles with careful spacing, never moving directly overhead. This is pressure without provocation, presence without escalation. Another sonobuoy sends out a pulse. The return is crisp. Inside the information center, the contact is now marked with certainty. Depth, speed, and heading are all resolved. The submarine tries to use the thermal layer again, rising just enough to blur its shape. But the move fails. The layer is now filled with sensors. There is nowhere left inside it to disappear. For the first time since the encounter began, the submarine's behavior changes in a meaningful way. It slows. Not as if it is drifting. Not by accident. It is a deliberate reduction in speed, the kind of movement that signals a crew rethinking the situation. In the Combat Information Center, analysts mark the shift immediately. A vessel that was testing limits now seems to be looking for exits. Its confidence has not disappeared, but it has become smaller. The Seahawk crew receives updated vectors and adjusts its orbit. The helicopter is no longer searching for the contact. It is holding it. Below the surface, the submarine gives off a brief trace of machinery noise. Small, but important. A course correction made under pressure. Another detail added to the growing picture. No warnings are sent. No dramatic signal is made. The message is delivered entirely through control of space. You are seen. You are tracked. Your options are limited. The submarine makes one more attempt to move through the pattern, angling toward deeper water and away from the carrier's projected path. The destroyers respond with the same quiet precision. Their spacing tightens just enough for the arcs to overlap, removing the opening without making the move look dramatic. This is restraint shaped into control. Minutes pass. The contact remains firm. Inside the Combat Information Center, a quiet understanding settles over the watch team. The encounter has crossed a line. What began as a challenge has become exposure. The submarine has shown too much. How it handles, how it reacts, which depths it prefers, how quickly it adjusts.
It has given away information it cannot take back.
Above the surface, sailors still see only calm water and the clear horizon. The carrier continues forward, steady and unmoved. Below, the submarine begins to edge away, slowly at first, testing the boundary. The net does not follow. It simply remains in place, closing off space by existing. The message is clear. You may leave, but you will leave on our terms. And for the first time since it appeared beneath the thermal layer, the submarine begins to comply. It does not race away. It hesitates. Deep below the surface, its speed drops another fraction. The change is almost invisible, but the strike group sensors catch it. That pause is not mechanical. It is human. A crew looking at the board again, counting exits that are no longer open. In the Combat Information Center, no one celebrates. No one raises their voice. This is not a moment for emotion. It is a moment for disciplined control. The Seahawk keeps its orbit, steady and measured. The sonobuoys remain active, their coverage overlapping in careful geometry. The destroyers adjust by degrees, not by miles, sealing space without announcing it. The submarine tries another depth change, shallow, controlled, searching for a thinner seam in the pattern. It is tracked immediately. The thermal layer offers no advantage now. It has been mapped, covered, and stripped of its usefulness. Every option is narrowing. Then, for the first time, the submarine turns away from the carrier's projected path. Not a sudden break, not a panicked move. A careful angle outward, just enough to suggest withdrawal without openly admitting it. In naval language, that difference matters. The Combat Information Center updates the plot. The bearing shift is logged. The closest point of approach begins to widen slowly, almost reluctantly. Still close enough to matter. Still close enough to remind everyone what just happened. On the bridge, the captain watches the change in silence. He does not order a pursuit. He does not need to. The carrier remains the fixed point. Everything else moves around it. Below the surface, the submarine tries once more to regain control of the situation. A brief increase in speed, a small course correction, a final test to see whether the pattern will loosen. It does not. The Seahawk's sensors sharpen the picture. Towed arrays hold the contact. The strike group's awareness is now layered and redundant. There is no single gap to exploit. The submarine's acoustic signature changes again. This time, not as a tactic, as a concession. Its machinery settles into a quieter, more conservative rhythm. The bold edge is gone. This is no longer a display of confidence. It is recovery mode. Inside the Combat Information Center, the analysts recognize it at once. The vessel is no longer trying to be noticed. Now it wants to leave with as little attention as possible.
But that moment has already passed. The submarine turns farther away, committing to a withdrawal line that carries it out of the carrier's protective space. The movement is careful, professional, and unmistakable. It is disengaging. The strike group does not follow. That decision is deliberate. Following too closely would raise the stakes. Holding position shows control without creating a new confrontation. That is not hesitation. That is doctrine. As the distance grows, the sonar picture begins to soften. Not disappear, just thin. The submarine's signature fades gradually, each mile returning a little uncertainty back to the ocean. But the outcome has already been decided. Everything that mattered has been recorded. Blade rhythm, reaction timing, preferred depth bands, course changes under pressure, and the way the crew handled being contained. A quiet catalog of insight has been built without a single visible escalation. In modern naval operations, that is a decisive result. The Seahawk receives instructions to widen its orbit, then begin recovery. The sonobuoys remain in the water, still listening, still confirming the withdrawal. The destroyers loosen their arcs by small degrees, reopening space without giving up control. The carrier never changes course. Below the surface, the submarine continues moving away. Its path is steady now. Its intention is clear. It does not turn back, not because it cannot, but because there is nothing left to prove. The encounter is ending. Not with alarms, not with warnings, not with chaos, but with a lesson delivered through patience, geometry, and restraint. Inside the Combat Information Center, the final details are entered into the log. Time of disengagement, last confirmed bearing, estimated exit corridor. The watch floor eases to a lower intensity, but the focus remains sharp. Above deck, most sailors feel none of it. The sea is still calm. The horizon is unchanged. The carrier's wake stretches clean and white behind it, indifferent to what just unfolded beneath the surface. But below the water, a boundary has been enforced, and someone has learned exactly what it means to challenge a carrier group and leave with fewer options than they arrived with. The ocean returns to quiet, not all at once, but gradually. Layers of sound fall away. The acoustic picture begins to loosen. The submarine's signature keeps fading, stretched by distance and depth, until it becomes one possibility among many. In the Combat Information Center, the plot stays open. No one rushes to clear it. Withdrawal does not mean absence. It means patience. And at sea, patience is how advantage is preserved. The sonobuoys continue listening. Each report comes back weaker than the last, confirming what the geometry already shows. The submarine is moving away through a clean exit corridor. No erratic movement, no sudden burst of speed, just a controlled retreat carried out by a professional crew that understands the board is no longer theirs. The Seahawk completes its final circuit and turns back toward the carrier. Its sensors are quiet now, recording rather than searching. The mission has shifted from containment to confirmation.
On the destroyers, towed arrays are eased inward by fractions, their long cables moving silently through the water as the net relaxes without falling apart. This is how control ends an encounter, not by closing too hard, but by holding firm until pressure is no longer needed. The carrier continues on the same track it held from the moment the first contact appeared beneath the thermal layer. That detail matters. In naval operations, consistency is a signal of confidence. A course change would have suggested reaction. There was none. Inside the Combat Information Center, analysts begin the slow work that follows every quiet confrontation. Data is reviewed. Timelines are aligned. Acoustic signatures are checked against existing libraries. What was once only a profile now has context. How it moves, how it reacts, how it behaves when its options begin to narrow. This kind of information does not create headlines. It shapes future decisions. The watch team notes the final fade. The contact slips beyond reliable detection range, absorbed back into the depth and background noise of the open ocean. The plot is annotated, not erased. The sea remembers, even when the screen goes blank. Readiness levels ease, but only slightly.
On the bridge, the captain gives a single nod as the last confirmation comes in.
No speech, no ceremony, nothing beyond the log entry. The carrier group remains what it has always been, a moving system built to control space without needing to announce it. Below decks, routine returns. Maintenance checks resume. Watches rotate. The day continues. For most of the crew, nothing remarkable appears to have happened. That too is by design. What unfolded beneath the surface was never meant to be seen or felt by everyone. It was meant to be understood by one audience only: the crew that tested the boundary. Somewhere below the thermal layer, now far from the carrier, another crew adjusts its own watches. Logs are written, assessments are made, lessons are absorbed without ceremony. They know what happened. They know how close they were allowed to come, and they know why they were allowed to leave. This was not restraint born from weakness. It was restraint chosen because it was enough. In modern naval operations, success is not always measured by visible impact. More often, it is measured by options denied, information gained, and intent clarified without escalation. The encounter ends with no public statement, no visible trace, and no disruption on the surface. But the balance has changed. The carrier group moves on, its wake stretching long and white across the sea. Above the water, the horizon remains empty. Below it, the ocean returns to its layered silence, carrying secrets and memory in equal measure. And somewhere inside that silence, one truth remains. The challenge was recognized, the line was held, and control was established. Not through force, through discipline.